Hello my darlings! It's time for another book review, and today it is Leah on the Offbeat by Becky Albertalli. Now if you go into the archives of this channel, you will see that I reviewed Simon vs. the Homo Sapiens Agenda back in January. Well, for those of you who don't know, Leah on the Offbeat is a sequel. It's part of the Simon verse. I also read another one of her books, The Upside of Unrequited, that technically takes place in the Simon verse because it's about Abby's cousins, but I don't consider that a direct sequel the way I do Leah on the Offbeat. Now, for those of you somewhat familiar with the Simon verse, Leah on the Offbeat is about Leah Burke, one of Simon's best friends that you met back in Simon vs. the Homo Sapiens Agenda. If you remember my review, you'll also remember me saying about Leah that she was a character I identified with in not great ways, which was not her fault, just someone I was like, oh, I was that person in high school, I remember that. That was not a fun time in my life. I got that perception changed a little bit. I'm really glad I did upon reading Leah on the Offbeat. Leah on the Offbeat takes place during the Simon vs. characters' senior year of high school, specifically their spring semester when all of the seniors, Simon, Leah, Abby, Nick, Garrett, Bram, are all getting ready to go off to college. And Abby is kind of trying to decide her future. However, due to some unforeseen circumstances regarding Leah's friend Morgan, who ends up saying some very unkind and very racist things about Abby, Abby and Leah end up touring University of Georgia together. And that just creates a lot of tension for Leah, who, upon realizing that a lot of her friends are going to leave her, Simon wants to go to New York, Nick wants to go really far away, she starts to wonder if she could ever have a really great future, the way a lot of high schoolers do. Now, for my darlings looking for some bisexual, explicitly stated bisexual representation, you can find it very easily in Leah on the Offbeat. Leah makes no qualms about it. She says it outright, I am bisexual. And I know for a lot of people that's really refreshing. And Leah even says about herself that she's fat and it doesn't bother her. So if you're looking for a character like that, Leah on the Offbeat is your book. And while I didn't enjoy it quite as much as I did Simon Versus, and I think that's partially on my part because I just sped through this book because that's what I do. I feel like if I speed through stuff too quickly, I don't absorb it as well. I'm sure if I took it slower, I'd like it more. I did really enjoy this book because it did get to the heart of a lot of anxieties that high schoolers have about what happens after high school. And what does a really happy life mean, and should you go to school closer to somebody you're dating, or is it better for you to not? Should you break up? Should you stay together? And while those were never considerations that I had personally, I know a lot of my friends did, and I know a lot of high schoolers do. For me, what I liked about it is that it seemed to be a book about how endings and new beginnings are the same thing, and I know that's really cliche, but at the end of the book, Leah does get a new beginning. And she does come to terms with the fact that life doesn't have to be perfect to be good, which is such a hard lesson to learn, and I feel like a lot of young people should learn it young. You know, we're taught to want this crazy, wonderful life, and sometimes one of my favorite books from when I was a child put it best: enough is as good as a feast. And I feel like that's the lesson Leah learns here. And even though I didn't like it quite as, just a little bit less, not a whole lot, than Simon Versus, I did enjoy this book. I feel like for teenage girls in particular who are going through this stuff, Leah's acerbic, sardonic wit really gets to the core of the anxieties we have when we graduate high school. And I feel like we need a character like that who is not mopey or sad, outwardly. She does struggle, and that's good. She should. It's a big change. I don't usually like acerbic characters, but I liked Leah because there was a wit there, and it was hiding a really vulnerable heart, and I was glad that I got to see that in her, because it's not something you saw in Simon Versus. It's not something you really saw in Love, Simon either in the film. I like that her acerbicness hid a good heart underneath. She may be sarcastic and a little prickly, but girls should be allowed to be acerbic and prickly. I feel like that's more honest. As always, I'm talking in a very, very roundabout manner. Mainly because I just don't want to give the book away, because I really do encourage you to read this. Especially someone who's about to be a senior in high school, or who has just graduated. Because if there's anything I really liked about Leah on the Offbeat, it's that it reminds people that our anxieties are not unique and that we're not alone. That this is common, and if we could reach out to each other, it might make everything a little bit more okay. Is there anything I didn't talk about that you wished I had? I know I have a very roundabout way of talking about that, but I just finished this book, so I'm mainly talking more about feelings. Is there anything you liked or didn't like? Is there something in particular you want to say yourself? Let me know down in the comments, and if not, I'll see you later, my darlings. Have a nice day.